Sarah Borden-Jorgensen works for minimum wage at a restaurant in Yaletown. Her tips go a long way to help her and her partner get by, but they're hard to count on.
It makes it very difficult when you're trying to save for the future, especially if you have to take some time off work, you don't get paid time off.
Sarah is one of hundreds of thousands of workers in BC who will get a raise June 1st. The minimum wage will rise from $16.75 an hour to $17.40, 65 cents more.
Even though it's going to be a bit higher, the wage, I don't see it allowing a lot of people to make ends meet.
Only Nunavut and the Yukon pay more per hour in Canada.
And that's really good news for the workers who depend on it.
But Anastasia French says with affordability in mind, BC's minimum wage is far from a living wage.
1 in 3 workers in BC are not earning enough money to be able to pay for basic essentials like food and rent.
The living wage, as calculated by Living Wage for Families BC and the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, is what 2 working parents each would need to bring in per hour to buy basics like food, clothing, housing, and transport for a family of 4 in their community. Dawson Creek has BC's lowest living wage at $20.64 an hour. The highest is in Clayoquot Sound, $26.51. For major urban centres, Metro Vancouver is pegged at $25.68. The Fraser Valley at $20.66. Greater Victoria is at $25.40, Kelowna at $24.60, and Prince George at $22.09. Now, Living Wage for Families and the CCPA have released a report that finds 740,000 workers in BC, 32% of the workforce, don't make their community's living wage. Workers like 58-year-old Grim Culhane. He is a person with disabilities who cleans Vancouver's streets.
It affects your mental health, just knowing that you can afford to live. Having to scrape from paycheck to paycheck is very difficult.
French wants the province to take more action on affordability and set the minimum wage to $20 an hour. But the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses claims that would make tens of thousands of BC businesses unprofitable. Apparel store owner Jeff Martin pays more than minimum, but agrees wage increases step on bottom lines.
The margins keep getting lower and lower and lower, so this is just another thing that takes a little bite out of your already thin profit margin.
But he also agrees his staff need to deal with the high cost of living.
They're loyal, so I want to be loyal to them. Quite often it just means I pay myself a little less.
The province's Labour Ministry says the government has cut costs for childcare, electricity, and car insurance, capped rental increases, and is addressing food insecurity. It's also committing to more minimum wage hikes tied to inflation in future years. Liam Britten, CBC News, Vancouver.